Perfect.
Hey, welcome everyone. This is our third quarter Spark Circulation Committee meeting. My name is Betty Renzulli. Thank you for being here today. We have a lot of things to go over, but it shouldn't take us a lot of time. We're going to be discussing the circulation updates with our upgrade coming in November. We have two speakers to talk about how they do inventory in Spark. And then we'll open up the floor for some discussions and we'll confirm the next meeting coming up for our fourth quarter. So I'm going to invite Katie and Catherine to share their news about our upgrade coming. And who wished to go first? Katie?
I was gonna say, who do you want? I can go first. That's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Let me just manage my windows a little bit here so that I can share my screen and not have it be too chaotic. And okay. So the first thing is just a reminder that we have both test servers upgraded. The test main excuse me, the main test one is the one that we'll be using today and primarily for our testing, because we have a couple of other projects in the works on test 2. And the way that you get to that is test.sparkpa.org/eg/staff. If you just go to test.sparkpa.org, that will redirect you to Chilipack and will give you the test server OPAC. So Kat will be showing us some things on there in a little bit. So if we go to our staff login page, that's going to be normal. You probably will have to re-register your workstation. And then you can see here across the top, this is our reminder that we're on the test server. So the first thing that I want to show is something that I am really excited about because Pales paid for it. So that is development to have the library scoping groups that we use in the OPAC, to have those in the staff catalog. So what will happen here, there are a couple of changes to this search the catalog screen. One of them is this show more filters button here, which is nice, kind of makes that a little bit more prominent if you want to do any of these filters. Then the other thing is that you'll see your default library, and of course you can set this in search preferences. If you have a search library, that is a library that has a scoping group or more than one scoping group that it belongs to. When you select that, you will then get this additional drop-down box. So if I just search Blair County without something selected here, I will search all of Blair County. If I select one of these, I will search everything in this group. So in deference to Betty, we will do Easton, and they have 3 groups, very fancy. So you will have the option to search any of these groups. Now, a couple of things that we did not pay for in this phase that we may have an opportunity to do in the future. You can't do more than one of these at once. You can only do one of them at once. So I would typically pick what the biggest one, but whatever you think will work. And then the other thing that's a little squirrely is that the scoping statements don't include the library groups. So you're not going to see this many copies in the scoping group. I'm trying to think of something that would be like a little bit more esoteric. So that we can see an example of one. Right. So here's one where we know because it's returning it in the search that this has a holding that we can get through the resource share that is at one of the libraries in this group, but it's not going to show us here in the summary. And then we would view this here, and then that's where we're going to be able to actually see the item level information. Oh, I picked a strange one, evidently. Oh, it's because I have my scoping set. That's why it's not showing in the item table. So that's just a little bit different than what you might expect. It's, in my mind, still a fantastic improvement because you now can search those from the staff catalog instead of having to kind of select the system. So again, if we do Blair, and then we can do the district group, and so we can see that. Kind of scroll down a little bit here and see if there's yeah, so it's not going to show in the in that summary. You are going to have to go and look at the actual holdings in order to see where the item is. Oh, sorry, it should show in the summary. But what you can do then is just go ahead and hit place hold, and then it'll do the same logic that it always does. Is this an item that is holdable? Just like it would for any other hold. So it does let you search those shelving groups, so we're super excited about that. And I will go ahead and show a couple changes to the pull list for hold requests. And this is super cool. I gotta find somebody who's got holds on the test server. Picking the system level, that's why. Okay. So what you can do, so I'm thinking about, I used to work at Altoona, and at Altoona, there's 3 floors, right? So what you could do is okay, I'm going up to the mezzanine, and so I only want to see holds that are in the nonfiction shelving location, because that's what's on the 2nd floor. And so I can pick that, and then it will just give me the holds for those shelving locations. So I know, like at Reading, similarly, it's multiple floors, and so they'll be able to go ahead and set that up, and then view just the holds that are in the part of the library that they're going to. So you can add a bunch. Based on where you're going to be in the library, and then you can just see and pull those holds. The other way that you can filter now is to filter by pickup library. So if the delivery is coming, and you want to make sure that you have everything pulled, you could go ahead and filter to just the things that are going to a specific library system. Or if you want to do in the morning, if you want to do the local pickup ones first, so that those notifications go out, you don't need to pull the delivery's not coming until later in the day, or not that day at all. And so you can wait and pull those later. You want to pull the local ones first, you can pull the local ones first. So I think that's really fun, and that's going to be, I know very useful for a number of our libraries that have buildings that are set up where it's not easy to walk around and pull everything at once, and they want to just have a section of that pull list. So I'm excited about that. Oh, the other thing that I was going to show, and Kat, if you'll look at my list to make sure that I'm not missing anything that I wanted to show. The other thing that I wanted to show is that the item alerts are improved. So one of the bugs that we'd had for a couple years was that you couldn't manage item alerts in batch. So there are some more improvements that are coming to item alerts in the next version. So there are still a few things that are a little odd, but you can now manage them in bulk. So you'll see I had added an alert to this. This was the test bucket that I used for doing the documentation for it. And so you can now do alerts in bulk, and you can also edit the alerts and then save them, either singly or in bulk. Before you had to delete it and re-add it. The other thing you can do, and this was actually a wish list bug that was filed by that we filed based on a comment from one of our support tickets that then got included in a development project that another library system was paying for. So it was something we suggested, but not something that we paid for, is to be able to select the default item alert type. So often people will really only use one or two of these. And so you can choose the default instead of having to scroll through the list of them every time. And I'm just realizing that library is spelled incorrectly in the name of those.
So just to understand this, what you're telling me is that we can set an alert in here that we repeatedly put on so that we don't have to go in and put it on. We can find it saved somewhere that we can, I don't understand.
So there are different types of item alerts. So what the different types of item alerts let you do is they let you choose what scenarios the item alert will display under. So you could say, I only want this alert to display if it's out somewhere for resource sharing and they check it in, it doesn't need to display. But when it comes back here to the owning library, I want it to display.
Oh,
Or I only want it to display at checkout, or I only want it to display at check-in.
And where is it that where's that you're at now that we would see this?
So that's the item alert feature is here now, and it's here in item alerts.
Right.
And so what the new feature is that you can manage them a little bit better, and you can set your default type. So if you almost always do display at all libraries, which is usually if you're creating an alert, you want it to display all the time. Instead of having to scroll through this list every time, you can set your default, and then that'll be what it'll come up as when you go to add a new alert.
Okay.
So technically a cataloging thing, but I feel like it has a lot of circulation functions. Check to make sure all the CDs are there, or
right. And this is item. We're more apt to be putting alerts on patrons records.
Right.
That's completely different.
Yes. So
it could be helpful if you have books that you have on a display that you want to be returned to the display.
Yep, and that's a good one for displaying only at the owning library, because if it comes in somewhere else, it doesn't matter. Also, if it's being checked out, you don't need to know that it's a display item necessarily. It's just when it comes back in, you want to know to take it to the display. So I think they're pretty pretty useful. There's a lot of scenarios for them, and I don't know what the use case would be for all of these, but it's nice to have those options. Excuse me. I've had bronchitis and I'm like almost all the way better, but I'm still coughing.
I have a question about that, Katie.
Yeah.
It says that they have to have mostly items in common. It doesn't have to be an exact controlled vocabulary, or does every notice, if you're going to edit something
Mm.
and you want, does it have, everything has to be exact? Or
So it will only, the current bug, and this will be fixed in our next upgrade, is that if some of these 14 items had, like, say like this one has also an additional alert on it, when I go to edit all 14 of them, I will only see the ones that are on all of them. I won't see, like, what you'd expect is that it would be like this, where it would be like, 7 items have this alert and 1 item has this alert. It doesn't do that right now. You'd have, if you want to see just that item, then you need to go to just that item. But you can now add the alerts in bulk and change. If you added an alert, you can change the alert in batch. So it's an improvement, but there's still work being done on it.
and are you saying that you cannot clear them in bulk?
You can, yes.
Okay.
But if one of these 14 had a separate alert,
Uh-huh.
it wouldn't clear that alert. It would only clear the one that they all have.
Okay, and the alert that they all have has to be the exact same alert. One can't have a period and the others don't have a period.
That would be a great thing to test,
Okay,
because I think I'm thinking that probably it's based on some kind of back-end ID number. So I'm thinking that maybe even if they were exactly the same, but they weren't added at the same time, I don't
Okay.
know. So that would be, I will make a note of that to add that to our testing scenarios, because that's not something that I have poked at for this one.
okay,
I do also know that CW Mars is under contract to finish this the next phase of this development, which will include like the level of management that you'd expect, where you can see which items have which alerts and manage them all at once, the way you would be able to like a shelving location, if you're doing it in batch. So that is coming. Kat, was there anything else that I should go ahead and cover, or should we throw over to you?
Did we talk about the record notes tab?
Oh, I didn't.
I don't know if that's
Um,
relevant in this.
It is a little bit,
Because
because it's something nice. And of course I picked a not great record. So one of the things that we've been working on, and those of you who are also on the cataloging listserv will have seen some of this back and forth, is about making sure that items that have monograph parts that are managed as serials, that's the scenario. Normally we say if it's the same item, put them all on the same record. This is the scenario where we don't want people to do that. And so one of the things that we've done is this record notes tab came in the previous upgrade. And then the new feature is that it will actually tell you that there's a note. So this is much more for catalogers who are adding items. But like if you are, for instance, having trouble placing a hold or something, that you can't figure out why, and there's a record note, that's not a bad place to look, because it could be an issue with the monograph parts. And so we'll be adding notes to records that have monograph parts, asking people not to add additional holdings to those, so that the monograph parts can function correctly. And you should, in general, not use conversational notes. I just was typing something so that we could see. how it works. So again, more of a cataloging thing, but something that you will see in this display. Okay. Ooh. All right. I will double check my notes, but I think that was everything. Betty, was there? Well, I'll let Kat do the OPAC stuff.
Right, right. I'm showing on my list
Um,
that you did touch on the things that you wanted to.
Okay,
And the last
perfect.
thing would be left would be Kat doing the OPAC update.
Okay, then I
Thank
will
you.
let Kat share her screen. There's a lot of features in this. It's a big upgrade. So I know like we've been working a lot on testing, and we're looking forward to having some other people starting to work on it with us as well.
Yes, this is a big upgrade. And there are a lot of public catalog and staff catalog changes that are happening. I do want to, so for this first feature, which is has to do with carousels, I will be doing more of an in-depth carousel refresher training at some point, which I will do live and record as well. But the biggest update in my eyes in terms of the public catalog is that manual carousels. I don't know if you've ever created a manual carousel, but you could create them from like a record bucket or an item bucket, and um, you just click buckets, create carousel from bucket. And in the past, it would create a system generated carousel, system generated bucket, which would be like a duplicate of the original bucket, but now it will retain the link to the original bucket so that you can actually update the bucket and it will reflect those changes in real time. Before, I probably can easily find a type of carousel like this, but you'll see like system generated, and it just gets very messy. System generated bucket for carousel, blah, blah, blah. You start to lose track of what this bucket is even related to. So the exciting thing with this new update is that when I name and create a bucket and turn it into a carousel, I just have this one page. And I know that any changes that I make to this bucket are connected to my carousel, so I don't have to go searching for that system generated bucket. So that original link stays there. So it really helps to clean up that workflow because it's it is just, I mean, it can be a mess. Um, this will only affect newly created carousels. So if you do have existing carousels that are manual that you want to have this feature of it being linked to the original bucket, you could just create it again, and then from then on you're gonna be able to easily edit, and I'll also rearrange the order of the titles, all those kinds of things. So, and you actually don't even have to go into the carousels administration page to make any changes. You can just change it right from the bucket interface. So right here. Um, so that is pretty exciting. And again, if the changes are made to the bucket, you're going to see them reflected on the actual live page on the public catalog. All right, so that is a big one. Again, carousel refresher will be coming up later, either maybe next month or at some point. Katie talked about the library groups in the staff catalog, which is super exciting. Another update, kind of minor, but still exciting, is that the upcoming closures are going to be showing on, let me see, I have a library that has closures. Upcoming closures are going to show on this library page on the OPAC. I have a screenshot of it just in case I couldn't easily pull that up. And so currently it looks something like this. So it just has the opening hours and the library contact information. But in the next version, you're going to see any of the updates you've made to the close dates editor are going to now show for the patron on your like library info page on the public catalog. So it's just a nice way for people to be able to anticipate your closures and be able to look them up in the catalog, and they'll be able to see you know what days you know things will not necessarily be due, and they have those grace periods of due dates. Another,
I have a question about that,
yeah,
Catherine.
yeah.
So does that show everything that's listed in the close date editor? So if I put something down like we're closed because of staffing issues, that's going to be showing?
That is a great question. Let me get,
That's a little embarrassing.
yeah. I want to say, let me look that up. Let me just make sure, because I'm trying to think if there are different, like if it's an emergency closing or, yeah. Yeah, we'll have to be aware of what notes we're typing into the close dates editor. But I will I'll clarify that and let you know.
Okay.
It doesn't show past ones. So any historical ones, the whatever you've named them, and we'll have to see, yeah, like if you put in a snow day closing kind of thing, I don't know. So yeah, that's another thing that we'll have to test. Because we
Yeah.
will let people know to make sure they're being circumspect.
Yeah, that's important. I'm trying to think if
But
like,
toilet exploded or whatever
right.
is not what you want.
Yeah, I was trying to think like if it's a certain type of closing, maybe
Or
it
if you,
doesn't
yeah, if you
show.
check the emergency box, or does it always show? I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, that'd be great for us to test and make sure we have clear instructions on what to do and what not to do with those closed dates. Yes, great. That's a great question. Okay, for the staff catalog, there were a couple of accessibility things that have been fixed. So one thing, I think it was Vince actually from the users group, filed a bug that you can type in input into this box, and there's this little X, you can easily clear out that query, but that didn't exist in this this field for the numeric search in the other version. So they've just made sure to add this little X to clear out any input for all of these now. It was a really good eye for catching that. So hopefully that makes things a little bit easier. And then on the patron side, there's going to be now a way for patrons to edit their preferred name on their side of things. So when you're looking at a patron record from the staff side, you can add their preferred name yourself, but the patrons can't necessarily edit that in this current version. But in the next upcoming version, they will be able to go into their personal information and make a change to their preferred name. So I could change my preferred name and make it Cat, so that you don't have to be the one to like ask the patron what's their preferred name when they're setting up their account. They can go in and do it whenever they would like. There is another new feature, which is that when you go to try to place a hold in the catalog and there are no notification preferences selected, it's going to present an alert when no notifications are set. So this will hopefully avoid some of those instances where the patron doesn't hear about the hold being available because they somehow, they don't have their default notification settings set up. And so it's going to have this alert, no notification options are selected. Are you sure you want to continue? So that they're aware, that you haven't entered any way for us to get in contact with you. Whereas before it would place the hold and it could kind of be lost in the ether. So that is something minor, but I think hopefully will make a big difference in terms of service to patrons. Other little things now, in the past, you could print pages like this, and it would just give you the option of printing the full grid. But in this newest version, you can actually select any rows and just print those selected rows. So that's kind of a cool just new functionality that hopefully will make your life a little bit easier again. And you can just print what you need and not everything all at once. Oh, the staff catalog, there was I guess a bug where you could choose an invalid pickup location. So let's show an example. So this is a valid pickup location. See how Spark libraries and like the system level is grayed out, but in the previous version, you can still just type Spark libraries.
I don't think it was
It
here. I
was-
think it was if you edited the pickup location, it
Oh,
didn't
really?
break out. Yeah, so it
Yeah.
wouldn't let you place the hold for pickup at, say, Salem Square, but
But
if you went into the patron's account and edited the pickup location, it would let you pick whatever.
oh, because in the
I think.
I think
Yes, that's
in the
that's
bug
the
notes
case.
in the bug notes it said that you could type in an invalid pickup location here and it would have let you
Oh.
choose that.
Okay, well then I'm glad that's fixed.
Me
But
too.
also when you edit the hold. So
Yeah.
Lackawanna was having the problem with Library Express because that branch is closed. They were noticing it. They were still getting things for pickup there. They could edit it. But yeah, it was a very
Yeah.
weird, very niche workflow. But yeah.
Hey everybody, Elizabeth's here.
Hey, you're here.
I'm here.
Yeah, so it won't let you do that, which is a good thing. So hopefully those two things, where notification preferences, you'll get an alert if they're not set, and then the invalid pickup location will not work. Hopefully that saves a lot of headache. And then another sort of minor change, but that you may notice, is that in our current version, it actually counts this number of shelving locations. So it would say like 6 shelving locations for the God of the Woods. Now it just says shelving locations. There were some issues where that number that it calculated was sometimes incorrect, and it just was like not necessarily the most useful information. So now it just says shelving locations. That, yeah, small change, but still something that hopefully makes the screen a little bit clearer and easier to interpret. There are a couple other things with course materials and things to do with Novelist Select, but I know that doesn't apply to everyone, so I think I'll stop there with the updates. And we can,
Thank you.
yeah, of course.
Thank you. That was a lot of information, but all so exciting. I'm very anxious to start playing with that. So we have another 20 minutes in our hour, so I think that's perfect amount of time to give our speakers the opportunity to share their experience. We have the topic of inventory being discussed today, and we have 2 Spark libraries that have experience doing inventory that are going to share with us what they have learned. We're going to start with the York County Library and Mary Beth Long. I believe of our speakers, she is the most experienced. So we'll start with you, and then we'll hear from Brianna next.
Okay,
Thank you, Mary Beth.
righty. I have some a slide deck that I'm going to share, so just give me a second here to get it set up. Lord. Right. Okay. I'm the Director of Technical and Collection Services and Interlibrary Loan for York County Libraries. And York County joined Spark in January of 2015. So next year we'll be coming up for 10 years. So we have 13 public libraries of various sizes, and we have some that are rural and some that are urban. And we also manage 3 charter school libraries in the city of York. And we also have 2 satellite pickup locations at township buildings in York County. So the idea of why you would do inventory, we first did our inventory in 2019. And we started with our district library center, which is Martin Library, one of our biggest libraries. And we did it because we had previously experienced a deduplication where a lot of titles were merged together. And we thought that using inventory, it would be a way to find those problems. And since Martin was the district center, we felt that it would have most of the titles that had been affected, that we could then go in and correct all of the other libraries' problems. So some of the things that you can use inventory are to find status problems for things that might be missing on your shelves, or that they actually were never checked in and now they're in the status of lost, but they're sitting on the shelf. It also helps you to reflect have the catalog reflect what's on the shelves. And for us, it also helps us to correct attribute problems in the catalog. I have a list of the attributes that we look for when we are doing inventory. And for that particular problem, when we started in 2019, it helped us to match the title that we had in hand with what was actually being shown on the screen. So, and one of the other benefits, but not necessarily an important one, is that you can kind of weed by condition as well. When you pick up the book on the shelf and the pages are falling out on the floor, then you know it's time to either repair it or to discard it or replace it. So that is kind of an added benefit for doing inventory. In getting started, you kind of have to make some decisions firsthand, like when you're going to do the inventory. At the Martin Library, we did do inventory when we were closed, or when we were open. I'm sorry. The building was big enough that we were kind of inobtrusive, so that we weren't in people's way when they were when we were doing the inventory. But we recently did another library in our system. We did the Paul Smith Library down in Southern York County. And we went in when they were closed in the morning, that we were there early enough that we could go in, and the area between their shelves was a little bit smaller, and we felt like we would be in the way. So, making that decision about when you're going to do it is helpful. And then deciding what you're going to inventory. And you can do collections, small collections, you can do the entire library, but it's helpful to kind of set a goal when you first start doing the inventory. Like if you're going to do it on a daily basis, like for example, if you're going to work in your fiction collection, try to get the A's and B's done and finish up an area. And that's helpful for reporting purposes later on, that you can say, well, I've done this collection. And also, who is going to do the inventory? And we found out that having 2 people do inventory was really helpful, because you could have one person doing the scanning and the other person is sitting at the computer and looking at what has been scanned and checking those attributes, and also writing up slips for problems that have resulted. And it's also, again, helpful to be able to switch off if you have 2 people and let the other person scan and the other person do reading. We had some repetitive stress injuries, because that's not something that you think about when you're doing that. But if you're doing inventory for a long time, you're reaching on the shelf, pulling a book out, scanning, and those are things that you might not do on a daily basis, or, for over a long period of time. So having 2 people do that is helpful. And then you kind of have to decide why you want to do it. I mean, it's a big project, and if you're looking to correct problems, or if you haven't done it for a really long time, that's a good reason to do it. But if you, I don't know when we'll do Martin Library again. So probably 5 years from now. So some of the tools that we had on hand, it was helpful to have those ready, a laptop and a barcode scanner. And we were fortunate enough to find a handheld scanner without a cord, so that we could move on and didn't have to be held down by the cord on the scanner. And in Spark, we actually set up an inventory workstation, and we just use that workstation for inventory. And that's because when we set up our grids, they weren't going to be the same grids that the circulation desk was going to be using, because we're checking for item attributes, and they might not necessarily need to see the same stuff. And then we had a book cart and pencils, and then we devised an inventory work slip as well. So getting set up, we first started doing our inventory in 2018, we used item status for inventory. And we felt that we could see all the items that were the attributes that we needed to see. And we discovered along the way, as I was running reports afterwards, that staff were missing the status. And I was still seeing missing items, but had an inventory date, but they hadn't been changed. So I'm not sure if Spark had the inventory ability to do it check-in, whether they had that as a check-in modifier back when we started. But they do have the inventory attribute now in the check-in screen. And so we've changed our procedures that we do use check-in now. And there is an update inventory check-in modifier that we set. And what that does is it updates your inventory status and resolves all those problem statuses at the same time that you have the book in hand. So, and the one thing nice about that is that that update inventory is sticky, so that when you finish out your inventory for the day, you can just close your workstation down and you're all set up the next day to get started again, or the next time that you have time. So we use these attributes when we set up our grids in the check-in screen. We use call number, prefix, and suffix. The call number prefix designates the age group that the book is for, and then the suffix is either the format or the genre. So we wanted to make sure that those items were correct. We also use monograph parts. So we can see that if something that we think should have a monograph part doesn't, then we can go ahead and add that in. And York County uses a combination of location and circulation modifier. For example, we have adult area new materials that have the high demand circ modifier. So we're checking to see when that item has been moved out of new, whether somebody remembered to go in and just make that item be a book. Because if the high demand circ modifier limits the item to one renewal. So if you want to be able to renew that again, you're not going to be able to because somebody forgot. And we've also had some issues over the years with items being OPAC ready, like they're able to circulate and holdable and visible in the OPAC. So we check that. And we also check the price, because the default price that we have set is $30. And if there isn't a price set for an easy reader that's $5, the bill is going to reflect $30. So we try to correct those price problems as well. And just because I'm anal, I like to see the inventory date go on too. But that's not really a necessary thing to clutter up your screen with, because you're applying that inventory date when you're doing the inventory. So here's an example of our screen, and you can see this is the check-in screen where it has the update inventory has been set in the check-in modifiers. And one thing to note here is the default is the 25 rows. So you want to make sure that you set it to 100 rows and be cognizant when you've gone, you know, you're getting close to 100 items that you've checked, because you're going to be going on to the next screen. So either start over and clear your screen. So you're ready to do your inventory and scan your items in. And if you're running into problems along the way, we created a inventory work slip that we have a stack of those inventory slips. And there are some problems that only technical services in our system can handle. And those are items that are not in the catalog and somebody cannot find it by searching the York County catalog. Only our technical services department is able to go outside and search in the Spark catalog. We want to make sure that we're using OCLC records, and we need to bring those in if we need to do that. So also, if the item, the title doesn't match the item on the book. That is something that needs to be sent to technical services to maybe find the correct record and transfer that item over. And then the items on the bottom of this slip that are locally trained catalogers are able to fix those. They're able to change the status and process damaged books for either replacement or for discard weed. So, and then the final step for the inventory is when we're done doing an inventory, I'm notified and I run a missing in inventory report. And it's a list of items without an inventory date. And depending on the library and what they want to do, I usually just use the status of available. And if they want to look at recently returned items too for condition, I will include those as well. So I will send them a report, and that's helpful then to know what they've done, like so that I only have to send them the fiction A and B authors, that they need to go to the shelf and look for the items that say they're available, but they don't have an inventory date on them. And either discard weed them depending on like the active date, if they're not on the shelf. And our key date here is September 6, 2006, which was the day we went live with our last ILS. So if it was active that date, but we haven't seen it maybe since 2019, chances are it's not on the screen, so we're in the library. So we will go ahead and discard weed that, or we'll make it missing. So that's how we finish up the processing of our materials and how we complete the inventory. So I don't know if anybody has any questions. That's it.
Thank you so much, Mary Beth. I have a question. You talked about the check-in screen set to the inventory, but that is while you're doing inventory. Do you try to keep that going on a normal check-in?
Well, I'm going to say that Martin Library has chosen to keep that update inventory check-in modifier active. So they are constantly updating their inventory of materials.
I like that idea. It seems like it would be best to do that when you've completed the inventory.
Yes.
Like that anything that was out at the time would get done, and then it would just mean less times that you would have to do inventory again. I like that. Thank you.
Yes, when you're running your reports, I know that PALS has reports for inventory, and we have an inventory report that we use as well, that there's ways that you can set up your filters so that you are looking for an inventory date that would be greater than or equal to the date that you started, so that you could keep track of that as well.
Yeah, that's great. Then you can almost have it reoccurring in like a monthly or quarterly basis, and then just not have to do from scratch what we'll do the first time. Yeah. Thank you, Mary Beth.
You're welcome.
We have Brianna to talk about her experience. I'm thinking that it may be a little different, so we'd like to hear from you next. Thank you.
Sure thing. I will also share. And I did do mine a little differently just because I knew we use a lot of the York County documentation. So I didn't want to duplicate anything that Mary Beth shared, because I know that is definitely what we use. So, okay. Can you all see this? Yes. Okay, awesome. So my experience is admittedly secondhand right now. I'm preparing for my first inventory in my role at our library. So I am the circulation services manager at the Albright Memorial Library, which is the main branch of the Scranton Public Library in Lackawanna County. We have 9 libraries, technically 10 if you count our bookmobile that's coming back soon, in our county, and each library handles inventory and these sort of things individually. So unlike for Mary Beth, like we handle it within our building ourselves. So I'm going to be doing it among the other fun circulation tasks that we do here. And the last time we inventoried was about 5 years ago. So we do that every 5 years. Let me show that, maybe. if I can actually get to the next one. There we go. So for context, here at the Albright, we have over 125,000 items. We're the main branch in our system. And as Katie pointed out with Altoona, we have multiple different areas because we have different floors. So we have 3 different floors of stacks, plus we have a storage area in the basement of the building next door. So our items are spread all over the place. And I sort of thought that the best way I could do this was to focus on how I'm trying to get us organized to do this, knowing all of these factors that we're facing, because that is what has been intimidating to me. Is sure, it sounds real easy to get set up and just to scan things in, but I'm curious to see like how we're going to get ourselves organized to make sure we keep track of that. So as I said, our shelving is organized between our stacks and our storage locations. We have a variety of different shelving locations because in our system, we use them both to apply circulation modifiers. So for instance, some things like puzzles have their own shelving locations specifically so that we can set rules with them, which our technical services folks help oversee. So I'm trying to find the best way to track those different shelving locations when sometimes they share one specific place in the library and sometimes they don't. So that is what I'm going to be organizing and sharing with you guys is what I've been working on to organize that. And like I said, we do our inventory every 5 years. So 2020 was our last inventory. I was able to talk to my predecessor about how we did it in 2020, but admittedly, the hard part about spreading out over time is she even says she's a little fuzzy on some of the things we did because it's been 5 years since we did it last. So I just stuck this in here. I figure Mary Beth definitely was covering a lot of this. So we follow the guidance from York County, which is available on the Spark page. So that's where we actually get ours, just for all of the setup of our workstations, all of that sort of stuff. And then for me, something that I found helpful was to identify our shelving locations. So going into this, I just knew we had a ton of them and I wanted to try and find out what they were so that when it comes time to pull those reports and find out what didn't get inventoried, we can see what those shelving locations were and make sure we're pulling the right reports and making sure that we covered everything. So I did this by going to the shelving location order in local administration of Spark. So I was able to find a full list of all the shelving locations. But the thing to keep in mind is that you may not use all of the ones that you have available to see there. So for instance, I consulted our technical services manager and asked her which ones were which, because a lot of them they use for, say, gridding our orders in Baker and Taylor. And we don't actually use those shelving locations on a practical day-to-day basis. So, and then other ones are no longer used because I think it was last year now that we actually updated our shelving locations. It used to be that like half of everything just said stacks. And now we have adult fiction and adult nonfiction and juve nonfiction and all of these different areas. So I was trying to sort of go through, see which ones we use, which ones we don't to help make that part easier. And then once you have that list of shelving locations and know which ones are actually used by your library, I found it helpful to think about what items actually live in those shelving locations. So I'll show you on my next slide the spreadsheet I made to explore that. But for instance, for us, we have a separate section for our mystery books, but they are still adult fiction in their shelving location. It's just that we don't have enough room for them in the section that fiction exists in. So we've separated out mystery and science fiction and westerns onto the second floor of our stacks, but most of the other libraries in our system don't do that. So they all stay in adult fiction. So if I'm going to be inventorying those, I need to make sure that I've gone through and scanned all of the books in not just fiction, but also upstairs in mystery and science fiction and western before I pull a report, or I'm going to think that a lot of things are just missing and have not been inventoried because I just completely missed them. So that is one of those things. And then we have it in the opposite direction because, for instance, we have young adult nonfiction and adult nonfiction, which are two separate shelving locations. However, we interfile. So all of our young adult nonfiction is just interfiled with the adult nonfiction. And therefore, if I'm going to go through that, I'm going to scan them all together because they're all in one area, but I'm going to have to pull two different reports to see what's actually missing, if that makes sense. So like I said, I've got this lovely list I started working on now, partially because of this lovely meeting and partially because January is coming up faster than I'd like it to be. So it's almost time to start. So we're going to be able to track our progress using this spreadsheet is my hope. So I had to split it up obviously, so that I could blow it up effectively. But I basically made this list where I took all of those Spark shelving locations that we have, and I tried to see what the physical location of those items are, as well as what the call number labels we use are. So for instance, adult audio is really straightforward. It's its own section. It's on the second floor of the stacks, and it always starts with talking book. So even whether it's a CD audiobook or a playaway, it starts with that. I can easily find that. However, adult fiction, like I said, is convoluted. It exists on 2 different floors and has, what is that, like 10 different call numbers? So there are a lot of different options. And to me, the easiest way to do this is to then go into this section and say, okay, we're going to focus on scanning each of these sections. So like Mary Beth said, we're tracking fiction A and B, but we also have to, once we finish fiction, make sure we do large type and then mystery and then sci-fi. And once we've scanned all of these sections, I can pull the report of adult fiction, what hasn't been inventoried, and find it. So this helps a lot with that. And this list was sort of, for me, the best visual way to lay it out. That way I could see, okay, these sections are in these areas. And it helps because, like I said, it varies significantly for us. Some things have, like I said, their own complete shelving location. So puzzles, the shelving location, but they're on the main floor by our circulation desk, that sort of thing. So this is the layout I had decided to go with for this. And then the last part I mentioned was about pulling a report. And I know this is different everywhere, but I would just go in and make sure I pull a report for each shelving location. I don't know if this is the way other people do it though, Elizabeth, so you can feel free to tell people not to do this.
I would only recommend for you, since you've noted that you have done the inventory in the past, that we adjust the template ever so slightly so that you can look at maybe items that have been inventoried, but the date is maybe 4 years old, so that you're not only finding items that have no inventory date, but perhaps items that haven't been inventoried in over a set number of time. That would be my only recommendation.
Perfect.
Because if you have that rolling date always changing, those items will be fine. But like say you scan that book during the COVID lockdown inventory project in 2020 and it hasn't moved since, or, you know, is that something that you want to, yes, it's physically there. Okay, great. But what is the, like Mary Beth suggested, what is the condition? Do you actually need it any longer if it hasn't, does it fall into the line of the general reading policy for your collection development as well?
Yeah,
so
and I appreciate
makes
that.
it more complicated.
Yeah, I know. I'll have to add it too. That's also part of why I'm intimidated, is because our last inventory was during COVID. So we were closed for part of it. And I know that made it easier for us to inventory. And we have the disadvantage of being a large convoluted building that also has very narrow shelving areas because it's about 150 years old. So that is definitely something I'm nervous about. But long story short, I just thought that the best I could provide was this lovely little chart that I made. Otherwise, I'm still very new to this, and I was taking notes from Mary Beth. So I'm excited to learn and try something new.
Thank you so much. I was taking notes for both of you. I'm very excited to try this here at my library. It'd be interesting to see, you know, how we move forward with this, you know, being able to have it set up as a check-in or just having a timetable that we're going to go to. And I will be checking in those reports to then find the one in Elizabeth's list that we can then modify for us when we do ours. Any questions that anyone has related to inventory, or we're coming to the end of our meeting? Any other questions about something that you're concerned with, Cirque?
I just wanted to say that some of the report that we use, I don't use the shelving locations per se. I would rather run a report on the entire building and then use Excel to filter out, because you might see problems that were not corrected. Like you have an inventory date for something that you didn't inventory the shelving location, but yet there it is. So that means that it has the wrong shelving location and that you just missed it, because mistakes happen.
Well, that explains, you know, how you could find something that had the wrong location. Even though, you may have missed scanning it, you
Yeah.
up the location, it's not gonna be in the list because it has the wrong one. So thank you
Yeah.
for that tip.
Yeah.
I have nothing more to share. The last thing that was on the agenda after, open discussion, if anyone had anything, would be our next meeting. I have, in my calendar, a Tuesday, December 3rd meeting at 2 p.m. I'm hoping that we can keep that as, the final fourth quarter meeting in 2024. So I will, put together the minutes for today and I'll add that in there and I'll share it with everyone. If we have nothing else to discuss, I think we can, adjourn the meeting now. Everyone good with that? Okay.